Welcome to the 11 Warriors show for September 6th, 2024. I'm Jason Priestis. That's Chris Lauterbach. Andre McCall joining us. Man, it's been a bit. Andre, how are you, man?
Fantastic, fellas. I appreciate you guys having me on. I have no complaints. Buckeye football is back. What's the complaint about?
Yeah, it is good to be back in the thick of college football. Our favorite team's 1-0. Dabo Swinney's down really bad. That's fun. Florida State down bad. Man, it reminds me of this legendary tweet from 2019. This guy went by the handle of Maple Cocaine, which is a fun name. Said, quote, "Each day on Twitter, there's one main character. The goal is to never be it." And I feel like FSU's been the main character on college football Twitter for 2 straight weeks. Like, I would be like, we'll get into it a little bit later, but I would be a little hurt if I was an FSU fan. I wouldn't even want to look at anything online right now. I just wouldn't, man. I know how that is.
Hey, man, if you have any initials in your name, DJ or U, I feel for you right now.
Right? Huge show, man. Ryan Day believes his team needs to get better. Got some injury updates to report on. We'll preview the Western Michigan game kicking off tomorrow evening. First night game of the season. Jeremiah Smith's first night game at Ohio Stadium. That's going to be a fun one. Talk about the Big Ten getting a little chesty and the SEC not so chesty. And then we've got a really fun What's Your Price at the end of the show. But let's get into it, man. Ohio State remains the number 2 team in the land following a 52-6 opener win against Akron. You guys think Zips quarterback Ben Finley's still in pain?
He should be suing the coaches. He had a cracked rib, obviously. I mean, the dude couldn't even breathe, and they just kept putting him back out there to take more punishment. Like, that doesn't just miraculously get better. Like, that takes a minute. I thought that was malpractice.
Yeah, it's a very thin line between toughness and stupidity. The coaches have to protect the players from themselves. Sometimes I agree with you, Chris.
A little bit of shades of, who was it, Brady Hoke that put a quarterback out there that was like got a concussion, basically. Yeah. And that was the last straw. Ryan Davis.
I get it when the dude's like really good. Like, you're like,
right,
this is our. I mean, what was, no offense to Finley, but I mean, it was not making a difference in the game. Why are you throwing this dude out here to just get murdered? I don't understand it. Every hit, he just was wincing and was cooked.
Yeah, especially when you got all those 2 quarterback packages, man. I understand why he wanted to play, because they wanted to run all those trick plays with those 2 quarterbacks. But yeah, that was no bueno, bro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was like he had his toys on Christmas and he was going to play with them, even if they weren't good toys. And even if it did damage to the toys, he was going to do it anyway. Ryan Day this week said, he said, quote, "We're nowhere near where we need to be." And also went on to say, every area of our game has to improve. The Bucs did win 52-6. But, I think it was kind of like a really great game for, this is cliche, but coaches love these games because when you hang 52 on someone, win comfortably. And there's still like quite a few things as a coaching staff you can coach these guys up in. Chip Kelly said, they were probably a little bit shaky early. So they're working on some of that stuff. But what a game from a coaching staff perspective.
That's why you set up the schedule this way, right? You try to avoid, having maybe that big kickoff game like a Clemson ran into, right? I think you want to start more with something like this. You don't always know in advance how it's going to work out and what kind of team you're bringing to the table, but with a new quarterback, some different stuff on the offensive line, Day in a different role, Kelly in, I think it was nice that they've got some cupcakes to start out. And every coach is always going to say there's a lot of stuff to work on after week 1. I mean, defensively, I'm sure there's other things they can do, but damn, what else do you really want from them? Offensively, though, I feel like there's still tons and tons of stuff to do, and those guys aren't even close to what their ceiling could be versus the defense.
And Andre Day said as much on the run game and the run blocking. He said there was some good snaps, there were some good plays, but we got the perimeter. Maybe make a guy miss next time a couple of times. There were some good things on the game went on, but they've got to continue to improve. It looked a little, I think Chip Kelly was accurate when he said it looked shaky, right?
Well, the first game is always going to be, a work in progress. You look at some of the other top teams around the country, besides, a couple teams in Texas and Alabama who handle their business. But I can honestly say, in my opinion, I think this is the best coaching staff that Ryan Day's had. So I have more confidence in these coaches on this staff than I've had on prior staffs that he's had. So, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it later, but the special teams, this is night and day, man. You got the right personnel, returning punts and kickoffs, and the schemes look so much better. So that's all about coaching, man. I mean, some of those guys were underqualified for the positions that they had, and it showed. So I think everybody's in the right spot. Everybody has that level of experience, the level of expertise in their particular fields and their position coaches, and I think they'll be good to go. They'll be fine.
Yeah, and Will Howard said as much. He said once he got settled in, thought he was most impressive with his decisiveness. Except for that one play, a little weird one. He tried to give the ball to Travion. You're like, Will, come on, man. You're like an old quarterback. You can't be doing that. But Will said if you're on time and decisive with it, that can kind of make up for mistakes sometimes. That's the biggest thing, is ironing out those mistakes and figuring out how we can start a little faster. So seems like the entire team's on the same page, which is good to hear. And again, just a tremendous game from a coaching perspective. You can hang 52 and then get to hey, we did a whole bunch of things not great. Andre, you briefly touched on it, but the special teams, man, they were so bad last year. And Day said they worked hard. This week he said they worked hard all last offseason on special teams. Hard this offseason, I should say. You look at Brandon Ennis, man, his aggression back there returning punts, man. I think he was 4 for 80 before a penalty kind of knocked him down to 4 to 60. But that's unheard of, man. This is a team that Chris, how many yards they have in total punt returns as a team last year?
70 something. In the Day era, they've not had, their leading punt returner has not had more than 86 yards in a season. So
that's insane.
You think Ennis got 60 in the first game, and even average punt return yards from your leading punt returner, 7.3 yards is the best a leading punt returner has done in the Day era. Both of these were Garrett Wilson, by the way. He averaged 7.3. Now, Ennis isn't going to average 15 yards a punt, but he averaged 15 yards in the first game. I think Jalen Marshall hit double digits one year, but you just don't see that too often from Ohio State. So to me, it was more about, Ennis is great. We said last week in the show, that's the guy that needs to be back there. He's got the right size and build for it. He's very shifty. But what stuck out to me more than anything was how Day talked about the strategy. Because, Parker Fleming was terrible. We know all of that, right? But I still think it wasn't just up to Parker Fleming to decide what the strategy was going to be. They weren't even really trying to return punts last year. Half the time, they didn't even try to fair catch them. So I think the fact that they've done this study, he talked about a lot, where when balls hit a field turf, even a terrible kick, it's typically going to roll at least 10 yards. So there's a lot more thought around, man, we need to catch this thing and also catch it and return it. And just that overall mindset, I think potentially be a game changer. Now you got to be careful, right? You might be playing a little bit with fire there if you get a little bit too greedy, but Ennis, I don't know. It was one game, but heading into the season felt very confident about what he could do. And I just overall appreciate a different type of strategy where it's not just a throwaway play. They're actually trying to make something happen on punt return.
It's refreshing. It was holy cow, this can actually be a fun part of the game again. And for me, there's no excuse to be that bad at returns when you have so many more athletes than 99% of the teams you play. They've got guys buried at wide receiver that are super athletes. There's just too many good dudes in front of them. Andre, imagine if this team could be really good at special teams. They've been good at kicking, been decent at punting, but mostly returns. Imagine how good this team could be, where they're already really good on offense, really good on defense, and you can add this factor.
Couple things about the special teams. Ryan Day also came out and said that it's a team effort this year. I think he realized that it was a mistake to put it in the hands of one guy and rely on your special teams, one guy to kind of be the coordinator. Now he's stated several times that it's kind of more of a team effort, which I think a lot of different sets of eyes on that will help the situation. The second part of that, how do you feel if you're Ballard right now? You're a senior, and basically you were returning punts last year, and now you're nowhere to be found as far as in the special teams part of it. I don't know. I hope the young man has a successful year, but it's just something about him, that the way that Day talks about him, it's just something there that he wants to see that he just hasn't seen yet.
Tough environment, man. When you go to Ohio State, there's dudes coming in with you, there's dudes ahead of you, and there's dudes coming in after you, and you've got to compete if you want to get minutes. And some injuries, man. We didn't see guard Donovan Jackson or Mike linebacker Cody Simon in the opener. And we know Donovan he's a first-round NFL draft pick someday, but I was excited to see Cody because you heard so much in the offseason about how good he is, about getting the guys lined up, his leadership. He's wearing the block O. He was named a captain. Day said on Monday that they're day-to-day right now. They had a really good weekend. And then Wednesday he said they both practiced, and they're both still day-to-day right now. I'm fighting a feeling. Are you guys with me? Or I'm fighting this feeling where I really want to see him in the game. I want to see Ohio State at full potential. But it's a long year. You're going to have all these playoff games. Depth is more important this year than any year in Ohio State football history. why rush the return if you got Western Michigan?
Yeah, you don't need these guys. You don't need these guys to win the game, right, Andre? I mean, you don't need them this week. So, yeah, my point of view is, hey, do not rush guys back for Western Michigan. I'm excited to see what the defense could look like with Cody in the middle. I'm probably more excited to see Donovan Jackson at left guard, knowing that offensive line is what ultimately, in my opinion, is going to make or break this team. So I would love to see Jackson out there, but I don't need to see him before he's healthy, Andre.
Right, and the fact that you play one game and then you get a bye week, so that's basically 3 weeks. I don't expect those guys to play this week either, to be honest with you. Coach Day has talked more about knowing that this is going to be a longer season for them. He's not rushing anyone back before he feels that they're 100% ready to contribute without any setbacks. I mean, why should he? I mean, you're playing the perfect schedule to get your team ramped up. You keep all the guys engaged. And also, I thought it was an interesting point when he said you can tell how engaged your football team is by how hard your players play on special teams. So it's going to be a lot of guys that generally wouldn't get a lot of run maybe on the field that are going to play this year because of the amount of games they're going to play. And special teams, you're going to have to compete to even get on the field for special teams as well. I love that. You got to keep that edge, man.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. It is a great point, and they're doing that right now. Not sure if you guys saw this. You might have, but Quinshon Judkins made the whole state of Mississippi mad this week. I guess gave a comment about what it was like to start and play in his first Ohio State football game in the Horseshoe. He said it was, quote, a one-of-a-kind experience, and then went on to say, quote, over 100,000. Being an Ole Miss, I only got to see that at away games, and their fans are mad as hell. They were tweeting his mother. Did you see her tagging his mom saying, that her son's going to one guy said spend all eternity in hell. He sounds like a really well-adjusted human being. And that she raised another guy said she raised a, quote, piece of shit, among awful things.
I mean, fan is short for fanatic, and you got a bunch of ignorant people in that state. So those two things magnify together, and that's the kind of stuff you get. That said, you see this stuff happen all over the world because people just can anonymously click and type and say those kinds of things. So, not as sad as it is, it's not like I don't think any of the three of us are sitting here shocked.
Not at all, man. And those are the same. And then Ole Miss is one of the teams that basically was up there with Ohio State as far as how much money they spent in the offseason. So if one of their players said something about one of the teams that they left, they will be okay with it. So it's just like, this is one of those situations, if you're on my team, it's fine. If you're not with us anymore, you're against us. I don't pay any attention to.
What was the lie? I mean, he said he doesn't play in front of 100,000 when he played at Ole Miss, right? I mean, what's their capacity? I don't think it's 100,000.
And it's also not a coincidence that every time it's another open job in the SEC, Lane Kiffin's name is coming up. So,
yeah, they put a hurting on Furman. They're feeling really good because they dropped 70 spot on Furman. So, congrats on that. Ohio State's opponent tomorrow, the Western Michigan Broncos, 0-1 on the season, coached by Lance Taylor, 4-9 in his second season here at Western Michigan. Fun fact, man, he was a walk-on for Alabama. Maybe the worst 4 years possible to play for Alabama, considering all the success they've had over life. He had 4 coaches in 4 years, man. You got Mike Price, Mike Shula in that batch. Like, you could have played for like Bear Bryant or Nick Saban or even Gene Stallings, and you play for the 4 bums that are like in between all those dudes. Like, what kind of luck is that, right?
Oh, man, that's awesome.
He was a walk-on that eventually earned a scholarship and, came back and was a GA for a little while, too. So at least he made the most of it. I'll give him that. He overcome a lot of bad coaching to have a pretty successful career.
He, I guess, spent some time in Columbus, too. He was on the Columbus Destroyers team back in the day. So welcome back to Columbus, Lance. They probably checking in their team hotel this evening. Games at home, of course, 7:30 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. Night game. So that's exciting. I mean, it's always weird to have a Western Michigan night game, but a night game's a night game. It's Jeremiah Smith's first time under the lights at Ohio State, and Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Downs. A lot of these guys' first night games. So that'll be a lot of fun. Lions, Ohio State by 38. That's pretty big. It opened at 37.5, so it's gone in Ohio State's favor. 2 teams have met just one time before. 2015, Ohio State won 38-12. It's interesting to me because I have 2015 in the back of my head this whole season in terms of is there too many weapons? Are they going to screw this up? So that's the comp all season in my head. Alumni of note, man. Terry Crews, the actor, went to Western Michigan. He's best known on the internet for playing President Camacho in the incredible film Idiocracy, which is one of my favorite movies. Bruce Campbell, another actor, played cult hero Ash Williams in the Evil Dead film series. Can't forget the guy with the chainsaw on his arm. Tim Allen, another actor, he was in the ABC sitcom Home Improvement, also rolled over on a cocaine deal and threw a bunch of people into prison so he could avoid it. I guess he had a couple pounds of cocaine in Detroit's airport one time, and probably best not to travel with that. Late, great John Saunders, a sports broadcaster, went to Western Michigan. And Elliot Uselak, remember that guy? He was a coach at Ohio State way back in 91. One season, he was the offensive coordinator for the Buckeyes. And I can only imagine the internet having a field day. Because you imagine that, because what happened was he's like, Robert Smith goes to the press and was like, hey, my OC, Elliot Uselak, is saying I should skip class to come to practice. And of course, at that time, Robert Smith's like, I want to be a doctor. I want to go to med school. And so massive drama. Smith ended up sitting out the entire season. Like, imagine that in the era of Twitter or X, like how wild that would be. And then Uselak was fired after that season. They're like, dude, not what we want there. So some fun alumni.
Coach Cooper's best hires for sure.
No, not one of his best. But you look at how Western Michigan got there. Went 4-8 last season, 3-5 in the MAC under Taylor. Week 1 lost to the Wisconsin Badgers in Madison, 28-14. But man, they had a 14-13 lead in the fourth quarter. The start of the fourth quarter against the Badgers, and Wisconsin answered with 2 touchdowns for the final margin. Interestingly, man, Western Michigan topped Wisconsin in explosive plays, 4-2. I did not expect to see that when I was diving into the stats. Could be a good challenge for Ohio State. What are your initial thoughts, Andre, on this team?
Well, we had previously talked about that. I think that I wouldn't say that Coach Fickell is getting a lot of heat, but the fans are getting a little grumpy. I think that Phil Longo that he hired from North Carolina, I don't think that that's a good fit. I don't think that that's a good fit at all. Wisconsin is never going to be an up-tempo type team and spread it all around. They just don't have to recruit those kind of athletes. So I expect, those guys to part ways after the season. I don't expect a lot of Wisconsin. Not to the fact that they don't have, Luke Fickell's first year when he won like 4 games. So he's a slow builder. However, but you're talking about a totally different style of offense from what they ran from Barry Alvarez. And Barry Alvarez is like God there in Wisconsin. And Luke Fickell is not running anything even close to that. And the fans are a little bit grumpy. But I'm here to tell you that Western Michigan had a lead on Wisconsin. Ohio State's not Wisconsin. Wisconsin's not very good. So I think that once Ohio State gets up on Wisconsin on Western Michigan, and they start trying to run all those trick plays and things that they had set up, those plays don't work when you get blown out. So I think that they're a little bit better than Akron, I would say, but not much.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin, I think their preseason win total for Vegas was 6.5. And I was like a little surprised to see that at first, because I'm like, man, that's just not what you see out of Wisconsin. I guess it's their lowest in 20 years. Chris, are you feeling what Andre's feeling, that this will be a little closer game than the Akron game, or do you think Ohio State kind of irons things out and is even more lethal?
No, I think it'll probably be a little bit closer game. I think, we'll keep an eye on the weather. I know it's not supposed to rain Saturday, but it might be a little breezy. It's definitely going to be a little cooler in the shoe. But I think it's just that I think Western Michigan probably has a better defense than Akron. And we'll see how Ohio State's, offense progresses. Because, last week, the offense put 38 of the 50 whatever points, right? 52 points. So you're hoping to see a little bit more out of the offense. It probably will, but I've got this as like a kind of a 42-6 kind of thing. I think it'll be a little lower scoring for Ohio State, because it's hard to just say you're going to get 2 defensive touchdowns every game. But I think this just really comes down to how does Ohio State's offense take the next step against what should be a little bit better defense, because Western Michigan's not going to move the ball very much on Ohio State's defense.
Yeah, looking at some key stats for this one, the Broncos had 261 yards of total offense against, what we determine as a kind of mediocre Wisconsin team. 3.6 yards per carry for 120 yards on the day. Leading rusher Jalen Buckley had over 1,000 yards last year, 10 touchdowns, but went 16 for 62. Did have 2 1-yard touchdowns in this one. And he's someone to keep an eye on. He's going to be targeted, a few times out of the backfield as a receiver. Fun stat here, too. 4 of 9. That's what Western Michigan quarterback Hayden Wolf, who's a redshirt senior, was on passes over 5 yards. Again, he went 12 of 18 for the game, so he kind of cooked on short stuff. I think he was like 7 of 8 or 8 of 9 on short stuff, but 4 of 9 on anything over 5 yards, I should say. And then 2 of 5 on passes over 15. It's a guy that played, 3 seasons at Old Dominion and transferred in 1,500 passing yards last year. Probably not going to be much of a passing threat. Can't imagine their run game is going to be too much of a threat as well. So we'll have to see what shakes out. From our perspective, what we want to watch for, some things we brought to the table. OSU offensive line. You don't know if Donovan Jackson's going to be back. And will they build off the Akron game? Man, they didn't allow a tackle for a loss or a sack last week at all. And 5.2 a carry against Akron after getting 4.2 a game last year. Not bad, man. Not bad at all. And those are some second half numbers that are even better than the first half. So, Chris, do you expect this team to have more of a consistent and potent run attack in this game?
I don't know that I think it'll be too much better. I think Western Michigan's going to be a little bit better against the run than Akron was, and I think this is going to be an offensive line that's in progress. Quinshon, honest, if I'm being real, didn't really impress me a ton last week. I think he averaged just a little over 4 yards a carry. It felt like he didn't have a lot of room to run, I will say that, but I think Trey was up over 8 average per carry. So I see them being a little bit better. I think it was 170 total yards rushing last week, I think. I would venture to say they'll inch a little closer to 200 this game if they don't have any long breakaway runs type things. It'll kind of tilt the stats, but especially if Donovan Jackson doesn't play, I think you're still just you're going to see these guys are still trying to get into a groove here.
Andre, Jeremiah Smith had 6 catches for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns as his debut. Not good enough for freshman of the week in the Big Ten. That went to Dylan Raiola at Nebraska. What do you think Yeah, he looked good. I got to be honest. What do you think Jeremiah Smith does for an encore in this one?
I think that Chip just wanted to get Jeremiah's feet wet a little bit. I think that they'll try to spread the ball out a little bit more. I think the emphasis will be more on the run game. We all know Chip Kelly likes to run the football. But going back to what you were saying about the quarterback for Western Michigan, I'm sure that Ohio State secondary is looking at that tape and said, "Oh, everybody can eat." The guy, he's very inaccurate across the middle. I watched almost the entire Western Michigan game, just knowing they were playing Ohio State the next game. And passes across and Wisconsin had very little pass rush. So if he's throwing the ball late across the middle, high across the middle, inaccurate passes with no pass rush, the way Jack Sawyer had his big boy pants on last week, I think they're going to, it's going to be 2 or 3 picks minimum in this game.
That's a great point. And this is a team that, JTT showed out with the numbers last week. But if you really watch, Jack, I think, was creating more havoc than JTT last week. I mean, JTT got the stats, but encouraging signs, building off of what he did at the end of last season when he was the best defensive lineman on the team for the last half season or so. Linebackers, man, is Cody Simon going to be back? Chris, I don't think you're convinced that Sonny Styles is suited for Mike linebacker duty. But he seems, well ahead of C.J. Hicks at the will linebacker spot. And then you got Arvell Reese, man, Glenville kid, just jumped off the screen, speed everywhere, 4 tackles, 1 TFL. What does he play if Cody's back? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's not that Sonny you can't play in the middle. I definitely ain't play in the middle in games like this. I just think, how much more are you going to ask of this dude? How many positions is he going to learn? And to me, it felt to me that clearly he is the best will linebacker. Hicks still looks a little bit stiff, looks a little bit more situational to me. It looks like Sonny can play every snap just because he can also play the middle. Honestly, I would rather a Gabe Powers be in there at the middle so that Sonny can play weak side if that's what he's really going to do when you play Oregon and you play games that that are true matchup games. I guess I would rather see that because he's so new in the role. It's not that I don't think he can play the mic. It's just, is that really the best move right here as a little bit of a Band-Aid until Simon gets back. But Arvell Reese obviously jumped off the screen very fast, 4 tackles, tackle for loss. I would imagine he'd play a good bit in this game. I'd like to see more of him when they have the 2 linebacker sets. If Simon isn't going to play, then you're going to see Sonny in the middle again probably. But I'd like to see a little bit more Reese instead of Hicks maybe and see what Reese can do.
Yeah. I mean, his weird day's been not as effusive as he could be about Reese. Like, he's kind of held back in some of his comments, says he's still got stuff to work on, probably trying to keep him from getting, too ahead of his skis and wanting him to develop on time. But Andre, one of the things we've talked about a lot this summer and leading into the season was, can the defense manufacture havoc? Because last year they weren't great at it, interceptions, fumble recoveries, touchdowns on defense, TFLs, sacks. I mean, they were okay, but just not as good as they should be. Game one, we saw some of that. 10 TFLs, 5 sacks, 2 turnovers, both went for pick sixes against Akron. Can they do that again against the Broncos? And is that a theme you're looking for all season as well?
Yeah, well, you know how I felt about the defense last year. Last year, I felt that they were elite defense. This year, I feel that the defense can actually win games for them. Last year, I felt that the defense was in the top, 5 in the country. This year, just taking that incremental step to be top 3, probably. But, I mean, anyone and everyone that you want to talk about on that defensive line was a beast on Saturday. Canoe, when he came in the game, I mean, he was just blowing up plays, man. I mean, Kenyatta Jackson flashed. I mean, Edric Houston came in. He gets credit for the pass deflection, even if it hit off his face. But, I mean, those guys were flying around. Everybody's fast. And one thing I wanted to add about Styles, the reason that was playing middle linebacker, because he's probably the smartest guy on defense. So the coaches feel comfortable, placing him like a chess piece on the board. But I definitely agree with Chris. Just let him get to one position, let him get good at that. CJ Hicks is going to be a situational player for Ohio State. I feel that he's still thinking a lot. He's not a very instinctual player, but when they say just go get the quarterback, oh yeah, he can definitely do that. So it's just one of those things where the coaches in these games are essential to finding the roles that the players are suited for and what they're comfortable for. These are the perfect games to find those roles and define those roles.
Yeah, well said. CJ rushing off the line is incredible. That's it's hard to see that sometimes and be like, man, is there any way we could just figure out a way to have him do that all the time? Gentlemen, what is the Big Ten going to do for an encore after going 17-1 on opening weekend? Kind of making a statement, man. Let all major conferences in win percentage, 9.44 on the weekend. Everyone look good. It's like that how high segment when it's like, F you, F you, F you. And it's like, not you, but it's like the reverse of that. And we're pointing at Minnesota right now because that's the lone L, man. And in true Charlie Brown style, they coughed that game up in the 4th at home, 19-17 in North Carolina. And you just have to wonder, man, Andre, is this the last season of PJ Fleck? Is that gig over? I
mean, I'm not going to tell Minnesota how to spend their money, man. But I mean, when you start to have apathy with your program, that's the worst thing that you can have. If guys were fired up, like this team should be better. They got a solid quarterback, offensive line, so on and so forth. But people are just like, they don't have any expectations for the team. When the fan base has, low expectations for the team, that's not good. And another thing about PJ Fleck, he always gave me the used car salesman vibes. Like, oh, this is everybody that comes on the lot wants this car. You should come here. It's great. We sell nothing but quality product. And then after that, man, you buy a couple lemons and, a couple seasons after the first one when it's just going down, down, down. That sales pitch doesn't work anymore. But, I think PJ is the kind of guy that's not really built for a school like Minnesota. He's more built for the school that he came from, Western Michigan, because the expectations and the alumni just have too much money and the pockets are too deep to keep an average coach around.
Yeah, well said. In point of correction, I think the movie's called Half Baked. I don't know why I called it How High, but for the record.
It's the same concept, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I was on the right track, right? I was on the right track. We've all seen that movie once or twice, and that's basically it. But yeah, the league went 17-1, but two of the better programs in the league, Michigan and Oregon, didn't look great, man. Oregon needed 10 in the fourth quarter to top Idaho 24-14. Michigan needed 17 in the fourth quarter to top a Fresno State team 30-10. Again, Idaho, Fresno State, those are tough teams. They're going to play you hard, but did not quite look as good as they needed to. Chris, any reason to worry about those two teams already?
Yeah, if I was Oregon, I don't think I'd be worried. I think it's it's a long season. They know what they're building for. They've had some success. So, I don't know if I'd make too much of that. They were also moving the ball up and down the field. I think their total yards are ridiculous. And may have some turnovers in the red zone or, those kinds of things. But Gabriel only had like 7 incompletions, right? And he threw it damn near 50
42 49
times.
or something?
Yeah, something like that. So I think that's what they want to do. I think they just had trouble putting it in the end zone once they got down there, and that could potentially not be a good sign. Certainly something to keep an eye on. But as far as Oregon's fans having the same ceiling this week as they did last week, I would imagine that's the case. I would, if I was a rational Michigan fan, I'd be a little bit more worried by their outcome because I don't know where the quarterback is on that roster. Obviously, rebuilding an offensive line and those kinds of things. I think they're setting up to take an L this weekend. Oregon, I wouldn't be so worried, but I think Michigan's game against Fresno State, I think you said they needed 17 in the fourth quarter or something like that to create some distance on the scoreboard. I think, again, if you're rational and you are just – I think a lot of them are like, well, we won the title last year, so we don't really care. And I guess I can understand that to some degree. But
true.
I think that, I would make more out of Michigan's outcome in week 1 than I would Oregon's.
And they know they're about to get hammered by the NCAA, so there's that.
God willing, man. You're right, Chris. Michigan, no quarterback, no offensive line. Coach doesn't have a contract. It's like pure bliss for an Ohio State fan. I hope bad things happen to him all year long. Some really, really big – sorry, go ahead, Andre.
Well, one thing about this is a hot take. You can put the alert up, flash, the lights, whatever you want to say. But Gabriel is not that good. Okay.
The leading money favorite to win the Heisman is not that good, and that's Andre's take. All right. We'll send this to him. We'll see what happens.
If Oregon's going to throw the ball 35 to 42, I think he had 42 passing attempts.
49.
If they're going to throw the ball that much, he's going to get broke up like Finley did for Akron last week. You can't throw the ball 49 times in a Big Ten game.
I hope you're right. You're right. I'd love to see it. That's the team I'm worried about the most in the Big Ten, and I hope you're right. Some really, really good non-conference games in week 2 this weekend for the Big Ten. Tonight at 9 p.m. on the FS1. Undefeated Duke at undefeated Northwestern. Undefeated. They're both 1-0, baby. Wildcats.
Nerd alert.
Yeah, Wildcats are 2.5-point dogs. I regret not looking. I know. If you see the picture of the Northwestern Stadium on the lake, that little erector set they built with like the stands in the end zone. That's the coolest thing in college football right now.
It's perfect capacity for
I love it.
Their games. Yeah.
I love it. I don't know if they're playing there. I think they are. I don't think the Wrigley stuff comes till later, but I hope that game's there. And I'll be a Wildcat fan for an evening tonight.
Well, speaking of which, have you seen that they're still doing construction at Vanderbilt? How long have they been constructing that stadium, man? It's been at least 3 years. How long? How much more money do they need? I mean, what's going on down there? That's an SEC school. That should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah, it reminds me of the hospital, the new hospital tower in Columbus here at OSU. Like, it looks done. Like, you drive by, you're like, that's ready to roll. And you drive by, it's like coming in 2026. You're like, how? Like, it's totally built right now. And I realize there's like a lot of maybe like air systems and important systems that go into hospitals that don't go into other buildings, but like, it looks done, man. I'm surprised it's not in full use. Noon tomorrow, number 3 Texas at number 10 Michigan. Texas is 7.5-point favorites. I know we're all 3 cheering for Texas for this one, but any chance Michigan gets it done, guys?
Hook them. I don't think so, man. Michigan's still trying to figure out their quarterback. If you're still trying to figure out who your quarterback is and you're playing a top 5 team, good luck to you. Michigan's their strength of their team is their D-line and their corners. I just don't see Michigan being able to score enough points to even keep this game less than 17 points. I'm thinking 27-10.
Dang. So Andre's saying go big Texas. They're easily covering. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I think definitely on the money with, this offense, I don't know how you can keep up. I do think Michigan's defense, you hit it. You got a good defensive line. You got some corners. You can hold somebody down for a little while. But I just think that you're putting so much pressure on your defense this year that ultimately some bad things are going to happen, right? Like, you just can't expect your defense to win games every week. Being at home is a big deal, for sure, in a game like this early in the season. But I think Ewers is, he's ready for this. I don't know if it'd be 17 or not. It would not shock me if it is. The only thing that would shock me is a Michigan blowout. I think a Texas win, fairly comfortably is probably more what I'm expecting. But it easily, I could see it getting out of hand, because if Michigan does get behind early, what do you do? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know.
Or
They definitely don't feel like they're built to play from behind.
No.
So if Texas can hit them, deep early, or just get a couple haymakers in early, that could be really bad news for them, because, I guess we'll see how it plays out, but they just do not at all look like a team built to come from behind.
And also, an interesting note, did you see that Sherrone Moore has not officially signed his contract?
Yeah.
So I have theories on that. If it doesn't work out and he has a quote-unquote fall on the sword after this year and move on, I think, Michigan will kind of separate themselves from him. He'll separate himself from the school. I thought that was interesting to say that it's a work in progress. Generally, things like that, if they're not worked out, he's kind of on a wait-and-see basis as far as what he's going to do.
Well, remember, he's innocent of everything, so he could just be waiting to see if, what does happen to Michigan, knowing that he had nothing to do with it. He may not want to try to work from under that.
Some definite NCAA liabilities with that, man. And you guys, the crying Jordan meme, it's been everywhere for the last decade, right? We love it. I still love that meme. Like, I still see it and laugh. Like, I don't think I'll ever get. We got crying Sherrone, man. We're about to roll that out this season. That first game that he loses, that picture is going all over 11 Warriors Twitter, Instagram. Like, that's the new thing. So we're gonna Photoshop Sherrone onto everyone else when they lose now.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
Yeah, got to do it, man. 3:30 on CBS. Iowa State at number 21, Iowa. Hawkeyes are 3-point favorites. They hung a 40 spot last week on Illinois State. It's Illinois State, but it's still Iowa, and that's a 40-point game from them. Most in an opener from Iowa since 2016. 492 yards of offense, or the most for Iowa since 2019. Quarterback Cade McNamara threw for 3 touchdowns, the most for an Iowa quarterback since 2021. 3 touchdowns, that's not asking that much. Like, that's 3 years since you've had a guy throw for 3 touchdowns. And I couldn't help but, Kirk Ferentz was suspended for a recruiting violation, incidentally, to get that quarterback. And his son's long gone, so no Ferentzes on the sideline for the first time in a long time, and they have a veritable offensive explosion. Fun to see. Another fun one tomorrow night on FS1 at 7. Number 19, Kansas at Illinois. Kansas 4.5-point favorites. First sellout for Illinois at home since 2016, like 8 years ago. So this is a game Illinois typically will lose every year and make us mad as like backers of the Big Ten. Because Michigan, I want them to lose to Texas, but Illinois, Kansas, I'm going to be pulling for Illinois. I'm not going to lie, I will, for conference strength. They typically lose that, so have to see what shakes out. And then 7:30 on NBC, man. This will be a fun one as well. Same time the Buckeyes are on. Colorado at Nebraska. Nebraska's 7-point favorites, man. I do personally like Nebraska in a home game with Raiola and some of those new things they're able to do with him. And I'm not going to lie, man. I'm here for the Deion explosion this season, the entire meltdown that's going to happen. And this is the first leg on it. Am I alone? You guys like Nebraska in that one, or did anyone here like Colorado in that game?
I like Nebraska. I think only because I hate Colorado. Like, I didn't even see much of Nebraska last week. I saw Raiola throw, have a couple nice throws. But yeah, I feel like I have no idea who would win, but I will be betting this one with my heart. I guarantee I will bet on it, because I've hated Deion for half my life, so I'm not going to stop now.
Must be the money.
I don't necessarily hate Deion's Coach Prime at all, but I just think that it's a couple things that Colorado is going against. First of all, the revenge factor. I've heard Matt Rules say several times this is a game he's definitely will use as a measuring stick for his program, number one. And let's face it, that Jeff Sims that played for Nebraska last year, if he was just competent, they would have a chance. Games.
Did they have seven losses, all of like 4 points or less, or something insane?
Well, I'm just talking about the Colorado game from last year. They kept moving the ball over in scoring territory. He would just give it away. But the offensive and defensive lines are going to be huge in this game. I just don't think Colorado. Let me tell you something. Coach Prime has done everything he can to make sure that his son shines. However, one thing that he has not done is shore up the defensive and offensive lines, man, they're about status quo. Maybe just a touch better on the defensive line, but the offensive line is pretty much the same. And I think Nebraska is going to take advantage of that. I think that'll be a low-scoring slugfest. I'd say 24-20 for Colorado, but I think Nebraska is going to get in the 30s. Let's say about a 10-point victory. I definitely think that's a double-digit win for Nebraska.
A good one, a good marquee win. It probably feels bigger than it really is just because of the personality behind it.
Neither one of those teams are ranked.
No.
Think about that. And that's a humongous game.
One could be very well after that game. Like, the team that's 2-0 coming out of that could easily pop into 23, 24, 25 on the rankings. So the Big Ten went 17-1, but down south, man, not so good, man. 1-3 in marquee matchups involving non-conference games with SEC teams in week one. The one they did win, Georgia just, pretty much bodied Clemson 34-3. That was in Atlanta at a neutral site. Dabo is down so bad right now, and it's so enjoyable. And this is so much has been said about how he hasn't changed what he does, and the God quotes that everyone on Twitter kind of puts out there once he loses a game, and he doesn't do the portal, and he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. Man, listen, since 2021 in the Sugar Bowl when Ohio State thumped them 49-28. The Tigers are 30-10 and have spent about 38% of that time just unranked, completely unranked. 15 weeks over those 3 seasons, just completely unranked. Buckeyes broke Clemson, didn't they?
Without a doubt. And the whole thing about it, Ryan Day, I realized how petty Ryan Day was, and petty in a good way, by the way. When they lost to Clemson, that was his first loss as a head coach of Ohio State. I knew they were going to come back and thump Clemson in that game. And I mean, they were up, 3 touchdowns, and he was still throwing bombs. So Olave and Jamison Williams, and that game got ugly fast. But, the whole thing about Dabo is when he had a great quarterback, he had a great team. They keep saying he's won 2 national championships. Yeah, with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. The years that he's had average quarterbacks, even though they did beat us in the Orange Bowl, full disclosure, but I can't even think of his name. Yeah, Taj Boyd.
Yeah.
But he's had average or below average quarterback like he has now with the Covenant. I mean, his teams have been underachieving and overachieving based on the quarterbacks that he had.
Good point. I think the same could be said about Mike Norvell. He's had like one good year in Tallahassee, and that was when he had the quarterback last season. Incidentally, Clemson welcomes App State this week, so I know App State will forever have a soft spot in the hearts of Ohio State fans, and quite easy to root for this weekend. The 3 games the SEC lost, though, man. Notre Dame 23, Texas A&M 13. That's in College Station, man. That's a good win for Marcus Freeman and a Northern team. Miami 41-17 over Florida in Gainesville. You guys probably saw the footage of Miami players leaving the field and telling Florida recruits there not to go to school there and to come to the U. Like, what a disaster.
That's bad.
And then USC 27, LSU 20 in Vegas. And it's a weird one for me because, like, Chris, I'm a lifelong USC hater. But that game, I'm like, man, they're Big Ten now. I've got to cheer for them against LSU. And I was able to do it and finally they did well. I mean, if it's Alex Grinch, imagine having to cheer for an Alex Grinch team at least, like as their DC. That'd be awful. Brian Kelly pounding the table in the post game saying he doesn't, was blaming his team and this and that, which is really weird because he never really blames his team for anything. So that was kind of refreshing.
First time.
Yeah, right. So that was fun. I don't know. You don't want to write these obituaries for the SEC just yet, but it might very well be 2 teams, 3 teams, 4 teams, and then a bunch of just mediocre teams. And then that's probably the outcome I want.
Yeah, it could be. I think the game has changed a little bit, though. Now that the playoffs expanded, I don't know that, that conference pecking order is quite a big a deal because it's not like you're going to get 8 teams in the playoff if you got a strong league, right? You're still going to get 4 at the absolute max if you have just a banger year for your conference, but still cheer for them to lose, obviously. I want Brian Kelly to lose. Honestly, it's one of those things where if, like, Michigan was playing LSU, that would be, like, the most conflicted I could get because I do not, Brian Kelly sucks.
SEC, Brian Kelly.
I would still cheer for LSU in that game, let's be clear, but it would be very, very difficult to do. And USC, you nailed it without Grinch. I mean, they were just kind of fun. I don't really hate them as much as I just enjoyed laughing at them. I just don't like Lincoln Riley. But before him, they've just been irrelevant for so long that I don't really have a strong kind of opinion on them. But yeah, watching LSU, watching Brian Kelly lose is always a good thing.
Couple notes about that game that stood out to me. That defensive coordinator for USC that came over from UCLA was the defensive coordinator for Chip Kelly. I remember him in the pros. I believe our buddy and comrade Joshua Perry, I believe that he coached Joshua Perry when he was with the Chargers. He's been around a long time. He's the kind of guy that his name will be creeping up for head coaching jobs next year. He did a really good job at UCLA, and obviously you could just tell the one game difference from Alex Grinch to him coaching the defense was just like night and day.
Yeah, they tackled. They looked like they knew what the hell they were doing. Yeah,
right.
I mean, they were obviously much more organized as an outfit.
LSU would have put a 40 spot on Grinch, right? I mean, we all agree.
Yeah.
And then insult the injury, man. The Emory, who was a 5-star recruit for LSU, he tore his ACL. He's out for the season, man. LSU's got some problems.
Mm-hmm.
They do, and we were talking about rooting earlier. Notre Dame fans, their whole life conditioned to hate USC because they play them every year and they're rivals.
Right.
We're cheering for USC against LSU because that's how much they hate Brian Kelly. And it's sports will make you do some weird stuff, but I love it. Big non-conference games for SEC this week. We already talked about the noon banger on Fox between Texas and Michigan and Ann Arbor. Also at noon on ABC, Arkansas at number 16, Oklahoma State. Cowboys favored by 7.5 in that one. Shout out to Mike Gundy for his Connor Stallions burn in the postgame last week. Here's what he had to say.
I can't. They won't let me hear it. If anybody's a good IT guy, get the guy from Michigan down here and let him hook me up. Even though he didn't do it. What was that song in... What was that song? You should know. Yeah, the song, it was kind of a partial rap in the shower. It caught me. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. What was it? Yeah.
It wasn't me.
That's right. It wasn't me. I know that was you. It wasn't me.
We can get the guy from Michigan down here and let him hook me up. He's asking Connor Stallions to hack into his receiver or his quarterback helmet communication system. And then he went with a Shaggy reference, Mike, my man. So a lot of love from Buckeye Nation this week about that. ESPN 2, 3:30 got Cal at Auburn. Auburn's almost 2 touchdown favorites. That'll be a tough hill for Cal. Still sounds weird. They're an ACC program now, of course, Atlantic Coast. It makes a lot of sense. Then 7:30 on ABC, number 14, Tennessee at number 24, North Carolina State. Volunteers are favored by 10, but man, going on the road to play a ranked team, just about anything can happen.
Yeah, another interesting point about Mike Gundy. Did you see he did his coach's show from a nursing home this week?
I missed that. What was the story behind that?
I think basically he just wanted to because Arkansas and Oklahoma State are really close. They're like 2 hours away from each other. I think the campuses are like 2.5 hours away. So I just think he was just setting the table you guys can come on over here and, we'll give you a nice old Oklahoma State welcoming when you come to the game this weekend. I expect those boys to be fired up, but I expect Arkansas to win. That's my upset of the week.
Ooh, good one. 10:30 p.m. on ESPN, the late night one for all of us that aren't ready to go to bed yet. Mississippi State at Arizona State. Sun Devils favored by 5.5 will be one to watch. So SEC hopes to bounce back. I will be cheering against them in just about every game they play, except for the Michigan game. I will be cheering for an SEC team for that one. Guys, you see Kyle McCord did last week?
I did.
What's he going to do this season for them, man? 27 of 39, 354, 4 touchdowns, his first ever start for Cuse, 38-22 win over Ohio University. It's Ohio U. But he had a great game. And I don't know about you, Chris. My position has always been that he's a good quarterback. He's a really good quarterback, just not good enough with progression reads and speed, his eye speed, to play and beat the elite teams that Ohio State needs to beat to get the at Cuse. He'll probably have a great year. He might go down as one of the best quarterbacks in Syracuse history. I wouldn't be surprised to see that either. Fran Brown, the coach of Syracuse in the postgame, said he wanted to send Ryan Day a bottle of champagne. Thoughts on that, Chris? Are you?
It's a win. I think it's a win-win, right? I mean, he wasn't going to be the guy here. You're shedding his dad as part of the equation, and I'd say this with zero vitriol. I think he's in a second-tier conference. and he's a second-tier quarterback, but an upper of the second-tier quarterback, and I think he's going to do very well there, and I hope he does. But for Ohio State in the Big Ten, particularly with this offensive line and last year's offensive line, you can't have a statue back there. So we'll see how good Will Howard is throwing the ball or whatever, but being able to run occasionally, be able to avoid some pressure, be able to feel some pressure, I think those are trades that Ryan Day would make 10 out of 10 times if he had to do it over again. And I wish McCord the best, and I expect him to do well in that league. But I think comparing what he does in that league, comparing to what happens in the Big Ten, is apples and oranges.
Yeah, Andre, I don't know if you know this, but Derek McCord used to harass us for writing accurate things about his son. We weren't even bad, weren't even hit pieces. There's Ohio State lost the Michigan game because of 2 interceptions, and then Derek McCord would be in our guys' DMs how dare you guys are trash. So kind of nice not to have to worry about that.
Well, I won't say anything disparaging about Kyle McCord. I wish the young man the best, but I will say the attributes that Will Howard has that we needed on this team. We need leadership, number one, and we need someone with some fire in their belly. I never thought that Kyle McCord had that fire in his belly necessary to win big games. And then also Kyle McCord, how many rushing yards did he have in his Ohio State career? I bet it was less than 20.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not going to bring that to the table at all. But at the same time, he'll throw the ball for Cuse. And, Buckeye fans mentally prepare for him to have a good season. Doesn't mean he should be the guy here still. It just means, good for Kyle. Hope he has a good year. Last bit nationally. Where is 321 Noel? The guy on Twitter. You guys might have seen this. He is an FSU fan who said following the Noles loss to Georgia Tech in Ireland that he tweeted, quote, "If Florida State loses to BC this weekend, I will eat dog shit out of a red Solo cup with a spoon and post a video of me doing it." So the internet's whoa, I'm probably not going to lose to BC, but, if they do, that'd be really cool to see. I wouldn't mind seeing that, so as long as someone else. Halftime in this game, Florida State's looking awful against BC on Monday night, and my man just deleted his Twitter account, peaced out. Anyone seen him? Anyone worried about him? I feel like he owes us something, and I feel like that's eating dog shit out of a red Solo cup.
He was oddly specific.
You can't throw that out there and delete your account. You can't do that. Obviously, first of all, you should never throw that out there. Just as long as young people listening, just don't say things like that. If there's even a 1% chance of it happening, don't say it.
Hey, there's a saying from Dave Chappelle's skit that he made: "Cocaine's a hell of a drug."
Yeah, when keeping it real goes wrong.
I thought he was going to hit us with the keeping it real goes wrong too, because he kept it real for that tweet, and then he kept it real and dipped. So we are worried about you, 321 Noel. We hope everything's okay. And you know what? You should just eat it and don't film it. You still have to live up to it. Just do something on your own. We're going to do What's Your Price? And this is a segment we do every week where we make up a hypothetical and ask what your price is to complete it, because short of hurting anyone or committing a crime, a serious crime, there's a price, I believe, for just about everything in life. And this week's question, we're keeping with the college theme, back to school. We're older gentlemen, man. We're used to a certain lifestyle. We're used to toilet paper being on the roll. We're used to having beds made and making our beds and having clean kitchens. How much, guys, would someone have to pay you to live in a campus house at OSU with 6 roommates for an entire academic year? And go ahead and assume the house is disgusting and there's 6 other males aged 20 living in it. And we're there at one point in our life. We know how nasty that is. And it's probably the grossest any of us will ever be in our life. How much, now that you guys have got this comfortable life and you're able to do nice things, you got money in the bank and a nice house, how much to go do that for an academic year?
Couple clarifiers. Do you pretend you don't have your day job responsibilities?
So you just got to go to work.
Responsibilities.
Well, you get a family pass. We have to do that. So
no family?
Let's say no family. You get a family pass. Somehow that's magically taken care of for you. Mm-hmm. But you got to go to work. It's not like you're going to biology while you're with your boys. You're getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning, whatever, and driving to work. But every night after work, you're coming home to that house, and there's nasty 2-week-old pizza sitting on the kitchen counter, and you got over the fireplace, you got all the bottles of Jägermeister that your boys and you crank through. How much for an entire academic year to live in that place?
Wow. I would say the salary that I make right now, except the pre-inflation days back in when I was actually a student at Ohio State, I would say that would be acceptable. That would be acceptable. I mean, because, let's face it, when you were in college, man, I mean, a $6 Domino pizza when you and your roommate had $3 a piece. That was dinner like 4 days a week, man.
Yeah, good stuff
or a
too.
late night snack. But I don't know, man. You can't put a price tag on something like that, man, because when I come home and I want to sit down and watch my big screen surround sound and watch a game, and I got 5 other guys watching my TV. They might have had them and their girlfriend might be sleeping on the couch. Oh,
Someone's farting,
oh God.
But it sounds like you did put a price on it. Sounds like you would do it if you got paid your salary now. It sounds like you're ready to do it. Andre's got some old school in him, man. He's ready to call Blue up and get the house together.
Well, you said we have our job, right? Like we have that's what we do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Are you going to cheat and then hire cleaners, with your money and then
well,
whatnot?
that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, well, man, I'll have somebody else pick up after these people, making
Yeah, but the thing about it is you be doing it like 3 or 4 times a week,
Yes,
man.
dude. And you still have to pay your mortgage, pay for your kids' clothing and whatever, dinner for your wife and kids while you're there. So you don't get all your money. You're not keeping it all. And keep in mind, man, there's several nights a week where you're trying to sleep because you got work the next day, and these guys are going hard on a Wednesday till 3 a.m. like one room over.
Coming in, drink after they drank like $6 pitchers of beer and stuff.
That's right, man. And we're guys, at least one time they'll be able to convince us to head out with them at 11 p.m. somewhere that we shouldn't be going at 11 p.m. Out or in, let's go together. So
more than once. Yeah.
Probably more than once. What's the price? I think I could do it, but I'm going to need to have my salary and whatever I make now. But I think I'm going to need an extra $200,000 for an entire academic year.
200, no way.
You wouldn't do it for 2?
That's way too high.
You would do it for less?
Hell yes. 200. So you've got your regular
You're
job.
going to go live with these guys.
And work. For 1 year, you're going to live on campus, basically.
Yep. That's spending Saturday and Sunday all day with these dudes.
Yeah.
You do it for less than 200?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't think you understand how gross the showers were. I don't think you remember well enough. Do you remember
I wear some flip flops, and I lived with you, fool. I know exactly what it was like.
They're gonna be pubes on every bar of soap in the house. You know that already, right?
Oh God!
They're not a clean bar of soap in that house.
Yeah, right.
So,
right.
so you're under
That's if there's any soap at all.
That's
If you
true.
do it for 200. I'll easily do it for 100. I was thinking more like
I'd buy that for $1.
75? I think we could probably, if you let us film it, I think we could pitch a show here, man. We can get 75 together, have Chris go live on, Iuka or 19th or.
We're not even counting the fact that you even like some of your roommates, man. There's that, just banging heads and with them about the smallest of things.
And don't forget your utility's going to get shut off at least 6 times during that stretch. Someone's going to forget to pay an electric bill.
Or the rent.
Yeah, I think I'd be just as worried about, we all parked our car on campus back in the day. It's like a total crapshoot if it's going to be there in the morning, if a window's going to be busted out, even if you leave it unlocked, whatever, it's still someone's just going to mess with your damn car for no reason, or you're going to park it on the street and you're either going to be boxed in or somebody will have hit it or both. So you got to deal with some of that madness too.
So I'm at 200.
My car right now is perfect for that.
Chris is at 75. I'm at 200. Andre, what's your price for something like this?
It's kind of hard to put a price tag on that, just based on the simple fact that, like you said, all the other extra added this nonsense that you had to deal with as a college student, man. You can't put a price on that. Oh yeah, you definitely had lots of fun.
Everyone's gonna think you're undercover in the bar, like that dude's a cop.
I mean, how many times did you come home with just stuff in your pockets? You're like, where the hell did this stuff come from? Just all kinds of just nonsense that you used to do when you were young and dumb, man. I don't know. I don't know. I'll say 300. I'll do it for $300. Yeah.
You guys are bougie, man.
Or 300K.
No, definitely 300K, not $300.
I was like, we can make that happen tonight, man.
Yeah.
Let's pause the show. We got to call some people, but all right, that's fair. Chris, 75. I feel like that's really low. I feel like all we need is get 750 people to drop $100 to commit to it in the comments, and we can make this happen. We'll film it. We'll have Chris down there, and man, you'd be out of the first weekend, bro.
Yeah, maybe we could monetize it for that too. It'd be more than 75.
All right, guys, let's end with rapid 5. I've got 5 quick questions, 1 or 2 word response from each of you for these questions, and if we need to, I'll follow up and get more out of you. First one, Chris, if you're Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, are you giving more carries to, Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins this season?
Travion Henderson, not even close.
Andre?
I agree. Travion, just for the simple fact he's got home run potential.
All right. Andre, is Justin Fry coaching Ohio State's offensive line next season?
I think that Chip Kelly hire would give him another year, but if you ask me, put me on the spot, I'll say no.
Chris?
I'll say yes. I won't love yes, but I'll say yes.
I think I'm a yes there too, because I think they're going to win it all this year, and I don't think you make changes after having the season that I expect them to have. They don't. Yeah, very good chance. Chris, next to Archie, who else should have a statue outside of Ohio Stadium?
Kenyon Rambo. Ooh. No, Chick Harley. It's got to be Chick Harley. He built the stadium, right? It's got to be Chick Harley.
Good answer, Andre.
I say Eddie George, man. He's the next guy in line that's well overdue for his recognition.
I love both those, and I think I wouldn't mind seeing at some point 10 statues around the stadium. I think that'd be really cool. Andre, who leads Ohio State in receiving yards this season?
Wow, that is a good question because I would say Jeremiah is going to have the explosive plays, but when they get to Big Ten and they just need to move the chains, I think Mecca's going to be that possession receiver. I'll say a Mecca.
Chris?
Yep, I like that. I'm going Egbuka.
You're both high. It's Jeremiah is going to lead the team in every receiving category this season. There's no doubt in my mind. Last one, Chris. What's your favorite pizza in Columbus?
I'm easy to please, but I ate it every night for a long time back in the day. I'm going Granddad's.
Andre, I know you don't live in Columbus, but do you remember any of your favorites? You're in Indy right now.
Oh, yeah, man. Catfish Biffs, man. Come on.
There we go.
Man. Classic, man.
They bringing it back from the dead? Is that how it works?
That sucker down, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Great memories.
I'm going to go with Bren's there. And also, nice work, everyone. I know we said 1 or 2 word answers, and we got a full sentence or 2 out of each on each one of those. So we'll lock that down in a future show. You are chatty. That's good. It's a show. That's what we want to be. Had a blast, man. Again, if you can get 100 people in the comments 750 people in the comments to give us $100, we will put Chris in a house on campus. Help you. You guys can even help us pick out the house. We can go look at houses together. We'll do it big time. So
we definitely got to record that, man. Just a look on Chris's face.
Oh, he'd hate it. At week 1, man, I can already see it, man. He'd be storming out of there. Had a blast. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. Subscribe, tell your friends. We appreciate it. As always, be good to each other. Take care of each other. Go Bucks.